Today we have the amazing Laura Elkis-Lassie, who's going to be talking all about profit in your business, why it's important, what to do with it, and how to run your business effectively. So welcome, Laura.
So great to be here.
So Laura, I always start the show by asking people something quirky or interesting about themselves. So what would you like to share?
That was a very good question. I actually am an Israeli dance teacher as well, so that's something a bit different about me.
So when you say Israeli dance teacher, tell me about that.
Sure. So I'm located in Melbourne, and there's about 4 different schools here. It's a particular style of dance, and I got into it for some fun, and then became a dance teacher in that particular style.
Oh, wow. Excellent. So today we're going to be talking about all things profit. And I know a lot of business owners and people in business a bit tentative about making more profit. Sometimes it gets a bad rap. So is it really a dirty word? Should we be actually trying to make more of it?
So I'm a true believer that profit isn't a dirty word, but I guess there's some conditioning around what people think about profit, that if you make profit, then you pay more tax, and tax isn't something you should be paying, or it means that you're greedy, or whatever it is, that sort of programming or story behind that. So yeah, that's where the dirtiness comes in.
Yeah. And so I want to go really back to the basics, and I know a lot of people know this sort of stuff, but even to this day, I'm sure people get confused about what profit actually is in a business. Is it that you make a whole lot of profit and then you distribute it to the business owners? Is that part of the profit? Does it come out before? So can you give us a bit of rundown really of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, sure. So what we're used to is top line revenue. So that's any income that comes into the business. And then you have your expenses that you pay out. And at the end of that report, or at the end of the day, usually told by your accountant, is that you have a profit. The disconnect is that people see a profit on paper and yet don't see the profit in cash in their business bank accounts. And so what we're talking about today is that profit that's on paper, but what we want to do is realize it in actual cash available in the business. So it's not just some amount that looks profitable, but you can't actually pay for things.
Okay. And why does that happen?
That happens because it's an accounting principle. It is, the income minus expenses equals profit. And there's money that gets paid out of the business account, such as taxes or motor vehicle novated leases and that sort of thing, that don't show on the profit and loss, but they are cash out of the business. And so when we're looking at the profit amount from a tax perspective, it doesn't include a lot of things that we're still paying cash out. And so that's where the disconnect is between profit on a report versus cash in the bank.
Yeah. And because I find this fascinating. So how did that happen, that our taxation system is in a way such that it's represented like that?
Well, I'm not going to go into the boring answer of that, but I guess what it comes down to is there's taxation and accounting principles, and that is, we only want to look at whatever we class as income and expenses, and if we can put things to the side, then it will reduce that profit, it will increase that profit and leave that profitable amount there. But how we actually work as human beings should really be income minus profit piece, so that we actually have that cash profit sitting in the bank, leaving an amount in your bank account for the expenses that you could legitimately pay for.
Okay. So it sounds like a simple principle, but that most people don't do it.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so I remember you mentioned a bit earlier around, last time I spoke to you, around the purpose of the profit being important. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what tends to happen is it's an afterthought. And what we want to do is change that around, that it becomes the focus of what you're spending your money on or retaining within your business, so that you can see that you have profit in cash in the bank account, and it's not just a surprise that you then need to pay tax on. And defining that profit's really important, because what we're used to is just an amount that we're told at the end of the year, versus putting money aside specifically for profit and choosing how we spend it. An example being with the profit first methodology, that within the profit account, you can use a portion of that towards growth. You can use a portion of that towards your own personal wealth. You could use it as, a vault, a war chest of such within your business, so that when you hit the down times, it has cash there to be able to continue to pay the things that you require. And so it's about defining what's important to the business owner, and what is the purpose, and why are you in business in the first place?
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot that can be done with profit, but
Absolutely.
it's doing a bit of soul searching around really what's important to you and your business. So, for instance, someone who's really risk adverse, it can give them that security of having that profit there as a safeguard.
Yeah. So I take a step back and I would look at what's happening like in your business. Do you have cash flow problems, or do you have ample cash flow and you're really wanting to leverage that amount? And depending on what that answer is, then I would say, okay, if you've got cash flow problems, then implement a particular system, profit first, which will allow you to allocate funds to the particular areas in your business, such as expenses, tax, profit, your own owner's pay, and that sort of thing, to sort that problem out first, because we want to get rid of the difficulties within business and really see what we have money to spend on. And then once you're at that point, okay, well, what do you want to do with this profit? It may not be to just reinvest in the business. And in fact, I don't believe you should. There's an element of growth that's required, but what do you need as a business owner? How is your business serving you?
Yeah. And so what's some examples of what people would do with their profit? So you've given us a few good ones around, investing it back into the business, which might be, higher marketing spend, or, upgraded services, or whatever it is, or staff. It might be distributed to business owners. What other things can it be used for?
So another example that I have, which is something that's come up a lot in the last couple of weeks for me, is that a business owner often goes into business to make an impact. And that it means either giving back to charity, or allowing their business to charge less for something for those that need, assistance and that sort of stuff, so that you're not excluding things. And if you have profit in your business, and especially if you implement profit first, it allows you to see exactly how much of an impact. So an example being that one of our profit first professionals, she went into business, and what she wanted to be able to do was build wells for women in, Middle Eastern countries and around the world. And the only way that she could do that without sacrificing money to herself and running the business profitably was to have that profit account. And, it started with being able to do one well to now multiple wells each month and each quarter.
Yeah. So it sounds like profitability is not only important to the business owner, but it has a much bigger impact.
Absolutely. Yeah. Think about like what situation could someone be in that you could help out with? So another example of that is, let's say you have a particular offering that's at a really high price point, but you want to be able to reach and impact people in other countries or other backgrounds that may not be able to afford you, but would really benefit from your service or product. If you're profitable, it will allow you to offer scholarships. It will allow you to give them access to things that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And so that impact, that ability to be able to go, I can do this without having a business that isn't profitable, or without being able to pay my own mortgage and that sort of thing as well. So it is huge what you can do with profit. That isn't just about being greedy and having money in the bank that is only for the business owner, which is totally fine as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's really a sign of the times. So many business owners that I talk to, and that Carmen and I ourselves want to have an impact.
Mhm.
So it's sort of good for the world.
Absolutely. It is. Think of that ripple effect. It's like that drop in the ocean. If you put, a little bit out there, the actual effect and the impact that you have is phenomenal. If you think about, even if you had a $20 that you could put towards something each month that then grew over time, could end up in the thousands of dollars in 10 years' time. We don't think about that compounding effect that things can have.
Yeah. And what else I like about it is because the way we run, we did care packs for medical staff in the Philippines, say, but we do it when we go, oh, we've got a bit of extra cash flow, we've got a bit of profit here, let's do it. Where it sounds like with the profit first system, you have more clarity about how much you can spend, when you can spend it, and you can do it on a more regular basis.
You can definitely do it on a consistent basis, but what you can actually do is reverse engineer what your business and personal goals are. So my example being that each quarter, when I take my profit distribution, 10% of my profit distribution, I want to be able to give back to domestic, violence organizations that help people out there, and overseas where it makes a bit of an impact, and that sort of thing. But instead of going, oh, I'm spending all my money and this time I have some additional funds, I'm going to send it over, it is a percentage of everything that I do gets allocated. And it wasn't just, oh, well, I'm at that position now. It was very much a deliberate decision that happened and allowed me to do that. And it could start with 1% if you need to make those changes over time. But it is really getting clear on what does your business need and how can you create a solid foundation, and then what impact you want to have, or what purpose would you like to give your profit, or if it's growth, how much of that is going to be allocated to growth, so that you can measure that return on investment as well.
Yeah. It sounds like it's almost based a little bit on, the traditional tithing system where, a third of my wage goes here to I give a third
The
to,
envelope system. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's totally
Um,
based on that.
yeah. And the other thing, because I'm sort of blunt and out there, I can feel people would push back and say, but I don't have enough money, or I'm just starting out, or
Mm-hmm.
the cash flow varies from
Yep.
month to month. So I would feel insecure and I wouldn't be able to do it. So what would you say to those people?
Well, the first point of the profit first system is to look at what's actually happening with that that framework on it. So, for example, a person who says they don't have cash flow to be able to do that, well, I want to identify what they're actually doing with that money. Where is it going? Because it's going somewhere, and they may just not have the clarity on where that is, or that their expenses are at 90% of what their income is, and they really could reduce that and allocate it elsewhere. And so the first step is to implement it, to see what is the assessment of my business? Where does it stand? Where is my cash going? Then from there, you can go, well, what changes need to happen to make this possible? And it is a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. And then from there, let's give all of these allocations a purpose. So how much am I actually going to be able to afford to pay myself? What tax is required? What expenses are needed to run the business, etc.
Yeah, yeah. Because because it is hard when everything's in together, and then you go, oh, I've got this big GST bill. Just
Yep.
speaking from experience. But you then have to pay the tax service. So it sounds like this really helps you avoid playing catch up.
Totally. It's not reactive. A lot of what accounting and finances are in business, including tax, is reactive. It's happened. You can't do anything to something that's happened. Whereas with this methodology, you can plan, you can be proactive. You know that GST is going to come around at some point. And so what is that percentage of income that needs to be put aside? And that tax is going to be a bill that's going to land in your lap at some point in time. And why not have the money there? And so it's being proactive rather than the standard reactive, well, this happened, here you go, can't do anything about it.
Yeah. And so can people, just say I'm in early days with my business,
Mm-hmm.
at what stage do I start to look at the profit first
Immediately.
system for my business?
Absolutely, immediately. And this is really interesting. There's a couple of myths. The first myth is that if you're at startup, it doesn't work. However, it does, because it's percentage based. And what that means is if $10 comes in, you still split it out with those percentages. It's not based on a dollar figure, and it creates really good habits. So we're working with your human psychology, with the habits that you have in your business, and it creates a very good money habit from the beginning. And then as your revenue increases, you don't have to make huge changes. You've already got that framework in place. The second myth is that it only applies to small business, and that's not true. You can create your own blueprint of how your money moves, and it works for small startup to really big business. I think I've lost you. Oh, I'm frozen.
Sorry, you lost me
That's
there.
all good.
So you were talking about how it's not only just for business, but it's also can be used in other.
Yeah, so I was saying that the second myth was that it's not just for startup, it's also for really big business. So it's a blueprint, it's a framework, it's based on your business planning, it's based on what's actually happening. It can be adjusted to any business structure, whether it's sole trader to trust level. It works for you, not you trying to work within it.
Yeah. Because the other thing that's coming up for me is when I started business, I had 3 mortgages with my investment properties, and so I was taking all these big risks, and I was moving, robbing Peter to pay Paul, as it were, moving money around and all that sort of stuff. So at that stage, I would have really pushed back, because I would have gone, no, I've got this stuff to pay. So I just want to be really upfront. So what would you say to me back then?
I'd say, well, how's it serving you? Like the reason why you don't want to do it is you don't want that slap in the face of what's not actually working right now. If you're having to move money around, then the money's not there. So what needs to happen in the interim to either bring the money in or reduce what it is that you have to pay? And it highlights what the next best step is. So you can either keep in that cycle, which is really hard to get out of, or you can put this in place so that you know exactly what you're working towards to make it work. And what I mean by that is, you mentioned mortgages. Mortgages, you can call the bank and say, hey, can we swap days around when I pay you? But most people don't do that because they're so used to just doing the same thing rather than looking at, well, I know that revenue is going to drop in here, which will allow me to pay that, and having those conversations. So it also highlights that area.
Yeah, great. And so you mentioned it being a little bit sequential or a bit of in stages. So tell me about that.
Sure. What I see happen is that people go gung-ho with everything that's outlined in the Profit First book, and that is particular generalized percentages for profit, tax, owner's pay, and that sort of thing, materials and subs. However, if you're really struggling from a cash flow perspective, it usually means that you can't just suddenly take all of the money that you're paying towards your expenses that are at 90% and move it around and then just not pay people. It doesn't work that way. But what you can do is implement a profit account, for example, at 1%, because you're not going to miss 1% of your income, so that you can start that habit and start to see that money be created and start, creating profitability within your business while you're sorting out the problems which are, current. Then the next step may be that you add in the expenses account to separate your income from your expenses so that you can see exactly what you're spending each month. And it goes on from there.
Yeah. So we've just heard from Namja Khan. Thank you. Profit First works. I've implemented it in my business as a startup. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Namja, for your comment. So Laura, what's the first step for people in terms of so you're the CEO of Profit First Australia and New Zealand. So you train all the Profit First professionals. So what's the best thing for people to do if they're interested in using the system for themselves?
Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that you can get started. The first being, if you've never heard of this concept, you can either read the Profit First book, which is available in hard copy, Amazon, or Audible, as well as a video now. So depending on how you learn. The other option is that where there's a number of free resources available, either through us or on the internet everywhere, about Profit First, and so that you can get an understanding of what it is. Then from there's enough information that can allow you to get started. If you're a DIYer, then there's plenty of resources available for you to do that. Or if you want that accelerated version of Profit First, where things are done in a way that really works for your business and those changes are a lot faster, then I would recommend working with a certified Profit First professional.
Yeah. And so what do they do for you?
Yeah, so they can basically look at your business and tell you exactly what's happening now and where your money's going and what their recommendations would be over what time frame to implement this system so that it is doable for the business owner, as well as, having expertise in how to raise prices, how to ensure you've got the right people that are working for you and work on different areas of your business at the same time. It also keeps you accountable. So if you are that person that is pushing back a bit and thinks that it might not work, it's good to have someone to go, if you follow this and do it in this way, then your results will happen, versus kind of going off and doing an ad hoc version of things and then saying the system doesn't work.
Sorry, I laugh because we've got a team in the Philippines, and everyone goes, "Oh, how's the internet connection?" And I go, "Oh, well, I'm 2 kilometres from the city in Melbourne, and I think mine goes out more than theirs."
That's hilarious.
So yeah, so you've said 2 options there. There's you can read the book, read up on it, and start going through your own figures and implementing it yourself.
Yes.
And maybe even talk to your accountant about it. And then
you can talk to the accountant, but you'll find that unless the accountant understands the methodology, they've got their accounting eyes on it, meaning those equations that we're talking about where you end up with the profit on a piece of paper and not in the business, they may not understand, but give them the book.
Yeah. And so are the Profit First professionals, are they accountants, bookkeepers? Who are they?
Yeah, so we've got a mixture. We've got accountants, bookkeepers, and coaches. And each of them has their own set of, expertise and services that they offer. Another myth that comes up is that you can only use an accountant to implement Profit First, and that is not correct. They are brilliant, don't get me wrong. However, business coaches as well as bookkeepers that are trained in the methodology can help just as much.
Yeah. And so, so then you've got that option where you can try it yourself, or you can, reach out. And it sounds like you can get different levels of support. Someone who get their head right in, and or someone who can, answer questions and, give you help when you need it.
Absolutely, and there's a number of Profit First professionals that offer group courses and those sort of environments as well, if that's more your jam.
Yeah. And how did you get involved in it?
I learned about Profit First many years ago now. I think it was about 6 years ago, maybe longer, doesn't matter. And I read the book and I thought it sounded too good to be true. And so what I wanted to do was implement it in my own business. And as part of doing that, I realized that the US, the original headquarters, have this certification and training and membership to become a Profit First professional. I thought, well, I'm an all or nothing person. And so I jumped right in and did that with, I guess, I was quite skeptical. I wanted to break the system. And instead, it changed how I did things, and the impact it had on my clients was amazing. And yeah, since then, I then became the certified Profit First professional and went on to become CEO, training others in Australia and New Zealand.
Awesome. Thanks, Tanya, for your comments. And Laura, what do people get wrong with it?
Okay, so people set up way too many bank accounts is what I see. They think, well, I want something for wages. I'd like something for my gas bills. I want something for, they get to the minute detail and end up with all of these bank accounts and transfer things around, when in actual fact, it's made them feel like they were doing the right thing, but it didn't serve the purpose. And it was another way for them to move money around and steal from themselves. So that's one of the biggest things. The other thing that I see is that they get started and it's not too comfortable, so they stop. And it really does work.
So they set up heaps of bank accounts. What else do they do?
They either start it and it's not quite working for them, so they stop. And the idea is that this is a living system. So as you change what you do and as your business grows, your percentages are going to change. So a startup is going to need one particular function, such as pay less tax. And you've got a big business that then may need to pay a big amount of tax or have high wages. And it has to be modified, reviewed, changed, optimized on a minimum quarterly basis. And people don't do that. They just think it's a set and forget. And so therefore it doesn't work.
Yeah. So it's like anything, you got to put in a bit of effort.
Yeah. There's definitely a journey involved.
Yeah. So it's just like going, oh yeah, I want to lose 20 kilos and I'll eat well for the first 2 weeks. And then I won't really look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's similar to, in that particular scenario, getting a PT. You have to show up and do the thing on a consistent basis. And if I'm left to my own devices, it won't work, because I just want the abs, but still eat all the crap.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's actually good to get support.
Definitely.
To do it, I think you need some sort of support, even checking in. It's very hard to be disciplined enough to follow the whole system yourself, I would say.
We're humans, and so we've created bad habits over time that we don't even realize are bad habits. And it's really hard to change these if you're not aware of what it is and how that mindset can shift and what the outcome could be. And having someone that isn't emotionally involved in what it is that you're doing can really help that.
Yeah. And
I missed that.
So I think as a society, like the way we do things is totally different to the old days of, it's just so easy to spend money and move it around and not be accountable for it and get credit and all those things. So it sounds like a great system. So Laura, if people are interested in taking that first step, what we've talked about buying the book, but if they were going to contact someone, who would be the best bet?
So the best way to do that is if you jump onto our website, there is a find one, which is to find a PFP, a Profit First Professional. And if you put in the information about your business and what sort of support you're looking for, we personally pair you with the best fit for your business, knowing what there is. And we also have a register on there where you can see who the Profit First Professionals are, where they're located and what they do.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I think it's an amazing system. I love that you've lived it and breathed it and tried to break it, and it's changed your life, and it sounds like changed other people's lives as well. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's been so much fun.
Okay then. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye everyone.
So if you'd like to see more interviews with amazing business owners sharing extraordinary insights, click subscribe, then click the bell button, then click all, and we'll notify you.